I had mentioned earlier that we had an opportunity in Indian Affairs to hear from the President's nominee for Assistant Secretary to Bureau of Indian Affairs, a woman that I feel is eminently qualified, a woman who can move into places where perhaps she's not invited and make sure that the voices of our Native peoples are heard. I'm very, very pleased that you have provided that support to her. But those of us on the committee yesterday shared that we thought she had a pretty hard job. You've noted the deficiencies within Bureau of Indian Education and your efforts to try to address some of the backlog issues with our schools, making sure that our Native children receive a quality education must be a priority. There's other areas, of course, that we all feel very strongly about, where we don't feel that either this administration or the previous administration or the previous administration before them did enough when it came to providing for being able to meet our trust responsibilities to our Native people. And certainly from a public safety perspective, that is one where I think we feel that there is extreme vulnerability. Senator Tester raised it yesterday. I have raised it. But I will just cite my concerns that in the proposed budget, we are seeing an effort to eliminate funding for certain programs that we have been working to advance to provide for that safety, whether it is the tribal court funding, whether it is additional support for VAWA with a set-aside for our Native people, the small and needy tribes funding, which for us in Alaska is incredibly significant because these are smaller tribes that otherwise would have very limited opportunity for any resourcing. The Tuahi initiative, which is a pilot program to really help provide for, again, a level of safety within our communities and to put pathways forward that can help with not only family and social services, but alternatives to incarceration, prevention, intervention. So I would just ask you for your support because we're going to put a lot of pressure on Tara Sweeney when she is confirmed and is in this position. When we think about the trust responsibilities, and you and I have had this conversation so many times, and I know where your heart is on this. You have shared it with me directly. You've shared it publicly, saying that you respect the responsibility and the obligation that you have as secretary for our Native peoples. And so I've heard your comments to Senator Tester here that this is where we have the executive proposing and the legislative branch disposing, but know that I'm going to be very aggressive in trying to ensure that we continue to make headway with so many of these projects that are perhaps smaller dollar amounts, but that when it comes to providing for the public health and safety and well-being and education of our Native people, we want to be working with you on these.
Well, thank you. And in regards to our Assistant Secretary of Indian Affairs, I do pick the best, most qualified individual to be a secretary. And in this case, it was the first female Native Alaskan in the history of Department of Interior.
We're very proud of that.
As well as we have the first female director of the Bureau of Reclamation. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you, if I get more than 7 out of 16 through the Senate, there'll be more firsts. A frustration, it took over a year for my director of the USGS, who also is an astronaut. He has a PhD in Earth Sciences. He's had a top secret, an SBI, and SCCI security clearance. He is probably the most eminently qualified director of the U.S. Geological Survey in its services history, and that's saying a lot because he had John Wesley Powell, and it's taken a year to get him through the process. So, and I was talking to the ranking member, and he reminded me when his father was the Secretary of Interior, he had everybody, his incomplete staff, in place, in the seats in 2 weeks. It is unlikely, as a secretary, that I will have a director of the Park Service, a director of BLM, and a director of the Fish, Wildlife, and Service by 2 years in.
That's unfortunate because we need them all, and know that my commitment is to help move these individuals through the process as quickly as we can, recognizing that the job on the ground is pretty significant.